ComedySlamRadio.com. From our studios to the world, we bring you the finest in quality entertainment. So pop some popcorn, grab a smooch buddy, and settle in for another fine show from ComedySlamRadio.com.
It's time for the Let's Be Frank show, where we get frank with your favorite celebrity and national touring comedians. Follow us on Twitter at Let's Be Frank Show, and if you miss our live broadcast on Comedy Slam Radio, find us on Stitcher Radio, Podomatic, and iTunes at Let's Be Frank's Podcast. Keep laughing, my friends. Good evening, and thank you again for tuning in to another Let's Be Frank show with your host, Fat Davey, Dave Frank. This week, we got a great comedian, Nick Vadaroff, who you've probably seen on Comedy Central and Jimmy Fallon. Nick, how you doing?
I'm doing amazing. How are you doing?
Not too bad. I practiced saying that name like 3 or 4 times to make sure I would get it right. Listen to it a couple of times.
You're killing it, man. You're doing well. Nick Vatterott. You know, some people, last night, guy got Vatterott right, and then he called me Nate. So it's like, I can't win. He's like, did I get Vatterott right? I was like, yeah, man. Maybe memorize. I think he was so worried about the second half that he just phoned in the first.
Well, for me, it's a stickler because I've worked in sales forever, and people love to hear their own name. Not that that's the reason I repeat it to you, but you have to be able to say their damn name right, or it's going to go down. And people like to hear it. They want to be, in conversations and everything. So I've always practiced saying people's names right.
Well, it's nice that you're that considerate. I mean, people should never get too upset about it. I mean, I don't really care, because like last names are weird because they're just like they're like a bunch of letters arranged in a way that you've never seen before, and all of a sudden you're supposed to be able to pronounce it right. At least you did. Some people they'll throw in. I hate when people will throw in a letter that's not even in the last name, though. Like people will be like, "Is it Vatterbot?" And like, no, the B is silent because it's not in it. I
looked at it at one point with some squinted eyes, and I thought it was Vatter not, and I'm like, wait a minute, is that an R and N? So let me get a little more awake when I read this.
I know, it should be in giant, like 3 feet by 3 feet letters everywhere.
That's the goal,
I'm
right?
working on that, though. That's the goal in life, to have your name never, like Donald Trump, where it's like never, Donald Trump's name is never small anywhere. It's only just in giant with lights all around it, up in the air. That's what I want. I want my name to be up in the air always.
There you go. Well, I've seen it on my TV on plenty of Comedy Central because they play your set.
Oh, yeah, man.
They play it all the time. That's actually, before I had seen you on your Comedy Central special, I hadn't known of you. So I watched the show and I'm like, you know what? I like this guy. He's pretty funny. And
that's great.
That's how it started out, because a lot of the comedians, when I first started doing the show, it was just scouring the internet and Facebook. And then you get a little bit more educated on how to find people, and, oh shit, I could DVR everybody that's been on Comedy Central and call them.
I know, it's so convenient. DVR is amazing because then you don't have to be, sometimes they air at weird times. Sometimes it's on at like a bunch of people called me. I had some phone calls like, hey man, your special aired at it was like 8 in the morning or something like that. And I was like, hilarious. And they're like, yeah, I watched it before I went to work. But DVR is amazing because then you can watch it whenever you want.
Absolutely. I get most of the stuff that I watch on Comedy Central. I DVR between because you get all the little half-hour specials they're doing towards the end of the night before they want to play fitness videos. That's what they're doing.
Right.
They're playing like a 15-minute set or 25 minutes. They mix it up, and it's great.
See, I DVR all the fitness videos. That's what I do. Sometimes I get home, I'm like, what? The Office, 30 Rock, and I just watch fitness commercials, man.
Absolutely.
It's great. All those commercials, they only play them at 3 in the morning for people who are already kind of like not doing the best in life. You know, like every time I watch one of those things, I'm like drunk or stoned. It's 3 a.m. and I'm just by myself in my underwear, and it's like, do you want a different life? And I'm like, yes, I do. And they never play those at 5 p.m. because everybody has their shit together who's watching TV at 5.
Absolutely, and they're too dirty. You see how hot and scantily dressed those girls are on these 10-minute ab workouts and all this stuff. I think they need to do a comedy skit, like Saturday Night Live or somebody, maybe me and a couple of friends. I need to do 10 minutes of fat exercises. Let's see. You were in shape when you could last a 10-minute video. You just got like 4 fat guys up there sweating their ass off, drinking Coca-Colas, trying to get burger breaks. I think that was...
It's like, cause let's be real. 3 a.m, you're drunk. I don't want to start like, I hate talking about jerking off, but let's be real. At 3 a.m. and you're drunk and you're by yourself and you're like, you know what, I shouldn't jerk off anymore. That's not a good use of my time. And then they just show you just nothing but hot women scantily clothed. Then they dive into the phone sex hotline. They're basically just going, hey, you should jerk off right now. That's what the ads are. Like, no, I don't need to be doing that. Oh, it's basically, that's so weird though. They basically 3 a.m. and they have ads for jerking off is essentially what's happening.
I think
they're not even like, hey, we'll get you somebody. What cracks me up is the adult friend finder, because those aren't, because I feel bad for anyone who's trying to legitimately find an adult friend on that.
Absolutely. You are going to come away with, if you actually meet somebody, you're coming away with some kind of funky green mildew on your pecker.
Exactly. Like, I like the idea of someone who's like not even like horny or wants sex. They're just like, you know what? All my friends are kind of teenagers. Maybe I'm a teacher. I just don't have a lot of like adult friends. So I'm going to find them adult friends. Somebody I could go to the movies with and maybe play cards and do things, and then they're like, wait a minute, all these adult friends just want to fuck.
Well, that's because they spent their childhood unable to do so. So now they join a site that says, well, maybe I can have some hope.
Hope, that's what they should just 3 a.m. just hope for $5 a minute. Hope.
Absolutely.
I pay for that.
Absolutely.
Just some guy being like, hey man, maybe it might work out.
Absolutely. They got the new one where they just show all the most beautiful women in the world that you're never going to be able to get on the phone saying, we're waiting to talk to you. We live in Tampa and we want to, whatever. And they're leaning on poles. And I'm like, you know what? That lady ain't in Tampa. None of this is going to happen. I ain't calling no number for a free 30-second confrontation. No, that can't happen. I got the internet. I got YouPorn. I could do the 5-knuckle shuffle in 3 minutes or less and go to bed. It
says, that's also weird too. Just like talking to somebody that you don't know if what they look like or if they're a man or a woman or any of that stuff is so weird. And I always think it's weird. Sometimes I'll be like touring and I'll be in a city like a small city, I don't know, like Pittsfield, Massachusetts, or Appleton, Wisconsin, and I won't even be on like a dirty website. I'll just be like on whatever, and then just all of a sudden the ads pop up, and it's like looking for adult ladies in the Pittsfield area that want to have sex. I walked through Pittsfield. I saw all 10 people in Pittsfield. I don't think any of them want to fuck. And I don't think they want to have sex with me. I don't think I want to have sex with them. And I doubt that they're on this website going, anyone new in town? I don't know what those ads for. One day I want to click on it just to see, but I know it's just going to be spam or something like that. But I am curious, like, what if just you click on it and someone just showed up and it's like, oh, hello, yes, I'm from Wisconsin. I'm next door. I want to fuck. I guess my Wisconsin accent is Irish, if you couldn't tell.
Well, Irish, hopefully they like the Wisconsin cheese. Probably goes good with the beer.
It's all the same. It's all just a horrible Jamaican, Irish, Wisconsin accent. Man. Cheese and the beer. And the weed!
That sounded just like the guy from the Red Stripe commercial.
That was me. That was me.
Nice.
I was actually in those ads.
There you go.
Then they didn't even use they cut me out. They just used my voice and put in a different actor that looked
There
more
you go.
Jamaican.
You did all the voiceover for Cool Runnings too?
All of them. I did all of Doug E. Doug's voice. Doug E. Doug, man, underrated actor. He did Cool Runnings. He was in The Cosby Show, the reinvented version. I mean, a real hot shit actor of our generation.
Absolutely. So let me ask you, let's get into the nitty gritty, Nick. Why the hell did you decide to become a comedian, and when was it?
Oh, it's funny. I was just back home. I'm choking on my own coffee. I was just back home in St. Louis over Christmas, and I came across this thing that I had filled out in 5th grade, and it was like this career poster. It was like a life poster, and you had to fill out all this stuff. I mean, the thing was like it was as big as a door, and as a kid, I thought it was the coolest thing. And you just wrote every single thing about you, like who your best friends were, and what your favorite color is, and if you go anywhere in the world. And there were just like 100 questions like that. And I remember one of the questions was, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And in 5th grade, I wrote stand-up comedian in that, and I feel like I kind of that's just what I wrote in 5th grade. I feel like that kind of went away. I think I also wanted to. I think the next year I wanted to be in the NBA. I'm
Nice.
5'5", the next year I wanted to be a video game maker. I mean, it changed. It always changed. But in 5th grade, I did say that's what I wanted to be. And then as I was in college, and my buddy started a short form improv group at the University of Missouri and asked me to be in it. I had never really done anything like that, so I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And it was fun. I had a blast doing it. And then I started writing a weekly column in the newspaper. It was kind of like a opinion, but it was humorous. And it was called My Humble Opinion, and I wrote for that. And then people responded really well to that. I got all this like great mail. I was like, I can write something and people can like it. That's weird. And then when me and the college stopped working out, I was like, well, you know what? The stuff that I not only loved doing the most, but that I seemed to be the best at was the improv and in the article, the humorous article that I wrote. So then I was like, you know what? Fuck, this college thing is not. I don't think college is good for finding what you want to do in your life, and I think college pointed towards not the education part, but towards the entertainment part, the humorous part. So then I decided to move to Chicago, and then that's where I started doing sketch and improv and stand-up and all that jazz.
All right. What club did you start out there at? Zanies?
Yeah, but I mean, like I was, Zanies didn't come till years later, I mean, I was just running around the alternative scene, doing shows in the back of bars and open mics, and I mean, that's where like, I feel like that's, even today when I do clubs, it's still like, it's great to do them, that I feel like my home is more like back of bars and stuff like that, the alternative, even black box theaters. Just those were the shows that I did for years, because, and then I did well at for years. And I would go to a club, and the club would be like, yeah, you're not right, you're not like club comic. And, eventually the clubs came around. But Zanies was the first club to finally be like, all right, which was funny because Zanies, Zanies was the only, when I was in Chicago, Zanies was the only club in town. Now they have like Laugh Factory, and Second City opened up. Up is the name of the place. There's an Improv out in Schaumburg, which is a suburb of Chicago. But back then, Zanies was like the only game in town. And I remember auditioning there. I remember the first time I auditioned there, it was when the Cubs had the Steve Bartman series, where the Marlins just embarrassed the Cubs. It was like their first chance to get in the World Series in like 100 years or something. And my audition was that night, so there was nobody in Chicago was going to see comedy. There was like six people in from out of town that were at the show, and so like the booker is there. I'm in front of these 6 people from Indiana, just being like, talking about Chicago stuff. They didn't get it at all. And then that was it. I never really. He kind of wrote me off, I feel, after that. And I auditioned a couple more times, and I never really never really had the set that needed me to get work there. And then one day, there's a place called the Conservatory, which is this black box theater in Chicago, run by Chemically Imbalanced Comedy, and they had a festival called Snub Fest, which was a festival where if you didn't get into another festival, it was a festival of people who got snubbed from other festivals, which is a hilarious, awesome idea. But part of the problem with it is that they didn't get into other festivals, so not all of them are like the best groups in the world. But I hosted it, and so some of the groups kind of didn't do well, and then I tried to I got the audience going again after each act didn't do well. They had 3 celebrity judges in the festival, and the guy running, Bert Haas, was running. He was booking Zanies. He was one of the guests on that show, saw that I kept getting the audience back, and I wanted to finally, my first club work I ever got was because he was a judge. The booker of Zanies was a judge at a place called the Conservatory at a weird thing called Snubfest. So it's so funny that that's how I wound up getting in over there.
Absolutely. Now, I talked a few times to a great comedian who's out of Chicago now, and from what I understand, he gives back to the younger comedians coming up all the time. Dobie Maxwell?
Dobie Maxwell, that's right.
I
worked with him once or twice at Zanies.
Fun guy to talk to. I've never gotten the pleasure to actually meet him in person yet, but plenty of phone and email conversations and a couple of different interviews here on the show. He really just seems like the guy that you want to be around when you're doing, when you're coming up in comedy.
He was, it was weird though. It's like Dobie Maxwell, and there was a guy, Uncle Lar, and there was a bunch of guys that, just, I'd say veterans of the Chicago comedy scene, but they only really, there was I guess maybe a bit of a segregation. Like when I first started doing Zanies, it had Dobie Maxwell and Uncle Lar and all these other guys, but I don't know, maybe Zanies just didn't feel a lot of the people on the scene weren't ready. But there was the guys who did Zanies, and then there was the guys who were doing the alternative rooms in Chicago. And it took many years for anybody, at least in I'll say my class of comedians that were coming up before we started doing stuff over there. But a lot of those guys, they never ventured into our world, and we couldn't get into theirs. So, guys like that, we never, I worked with, once I finally started working at Zanies, I think I worked with him 1 week, and, he was nice and great, but it's always weird hearing about, Chicago guys when you're I'm in Chicago, and I never saw any of these guys, and the only place they play in Chicago is just Zanies, and that's it. But at the same time, he's paid his dues. He was probably about 20 years before that, he was all over the scene, and now he's just I just do Zanies now. It's the only one that pays. Of course, right. I mean, all these other shows don't pay. We're doing it just to work out stuff or whatever.
Well, it's funny because, as you said, 20-something years ago, he was a road comic, and that's it. He was everywhere. And he got sidetracked, and he said one of the biggest mistakes was doing radio as a regular job with a stable income and, insurance and benefits, and that got him sidetracked. And then he had to go back out and hit the road again to almost reestablish or to get back up there again. He left for too long. But
well, I mean, he could be, let's say he just stayed on the road the whole time. Then he would have been burnt out by the time he got that, by the time he wound up going on the road again. He could have been burnt out on the road by that point and been you know what, I wish I would have mixed it up and done something different for a while. It's always super easy to say you could have done something else.
Right.
I think stable work to me, that's all you can really ask for. To me, there's a million infinite levels of success of what to me, just, it's weird. People outside of comedy, they look at comedians as either Seinfeld or a failure. They don't see that there's all these, because if they're oh, you're a comedian, they're that I'm doing, it's hey, I'm actually doing pretty good. I finally, I'm living off just my comedy. I mean, that's all I can ask. And they're it's so funny when people come up to me after shows, and I can just crush and have the best show of my life for an hour, and people will come up afterwards and be hey man, keep it up. I can see this working out for you. And it's like, what does it take for it to have worked out for me? Do I have to be like on my deathbed and be like, it worked out, or or I couldn't get any gigs last week, it didn't work out.
See, I think you're getting on Comedy Central, which is right now the end all be all of comedy. We're gone are the days where HBO is doing an hour special, and it's so much more of a saturated market for television that I think most of us. I mean, I'm 40. Most of us who grew up watching those 1 hour specials before there was ever a Comedy Central to begin with. So now,
One Night Stand and all that stuff. I mean, that was all there was.
Yeah. So I mean, I grew up watching. I remember some of the very first comics were Red Skelton, George Burns, Buddy Hackett,
right.
And then the Bill Cosbys and Eddie Murphys and other people came along later. And I never even wanted to be a comic back then. I never thought it would happen. But, it wasn't even, but I'm amazed. People are like, who are some of your favorite comics? And I go back to those guys and they're like, well, that's so weird to hear. Like they expect me to hear all these newer names. And, those were the guys that got me interested in comedy, was watching George Burns sitting there on his cigar telling stories that were just like this outlandish and fabulous stuff. And I was just like, holy cow, this is phenomenal.
And all those guys set up the next class of guys, I mean, I think everyone's favorite comics are the ones that they're exposed to, like if you're growing up right now, there's just not a lot of George Burns being played out on TV and the internet,
Nope.
Now now it's all Zach Al, it's Louis C.K., it's Patton Oswalt, it's all these, these great guys, and this will be the influence for people growing up now that later on, to be like, and then there'll be another class after them, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I don't really. The people I identify with was it's like when Saturday Night Live too. People are always like the Saturday Night Live that you watched when you grew up. That's what everybody says was the best years of Saturday Night Live. It's always funny that you talk to people and they're like, oh, the best years were Will Ferrell, or the best years were Dan Aykroyd, or the best years were Mike Myers and those guys. And you were like, when did you watch Saturday Night Live? And they're like, oh, and you figure out that when they were like a teenager.
Exactly.
Whoever the cast was that year is like their favorite, favorite cast.
Exactly. Because I tune in now, and sometimes, like I tune in to Saturday Night Live, and sometimes, I still like it, but to me, it's not the same as it was at all. Like I'm like, yeah, I missed my guys. Right. It's like I liked seeing. I was there for Aykroyd all the way up to Adam Sandler, and then after that, it wasn't as, After that, I was like, I don't watch it as much anymore.
It's so funny. There's like a who was it? There was somebody who made the joke. Somebody made the joke as a host once on Saturday Night Live, where they're like, Saturday Night Live, the critics were saying it was good, and they were saying it was bad, and they were saying it was good again, they were saying it's bad again, then it was saying it's back, then it was saying it's gone, then it's back again, and they go, and that was just the first season. And and I remember whoever this host was made this joke like in, I think like late 80s or early 90s. This has always been a thing where ebbs and flows, and to me Saturday Night Live it's too much. I like TV parody, but it's like it's almost the whole show is TV parody. It's everything's either a game show or a talk show or and I like it. I wish there was more just sketches. I felt like there was more just like straight up sketches when I was growing up, that I thought was more funny. But everything now is like a fake talk show, fake game show, fake some sort of TV parody, and which is fine. I think sketches are just it mixes it up a little bit more. But then there's people growing up now that watch it, and all the stuff relates to what their pop culture stuff they're surrounded by, so they'll identify with it more. And I always think it's weird though, because you can't write off what the past people have done. And I know I hate when people are like, they talk about the older comedians, they shit on Pryor, or they'll shit on Carlin or something like that, and be like, whatever, these two guys are the best, but I listen to their stuff and I don't get it. And it's just like, yeah, those guys, they've been people have copied them so many times that when you hear them, it doesn't even sound original anymore because they were so great that it copied over and over and over.
It's funny you say that. I obviously I go on stage as Fat Davey a lot of times, and I tell a lot of fat guy jokes. And I started to go down at one point, it was like 8 months ago, I started writing jokes about going to buffets. And I'm like, I don't know if I could pull this off after everything that's been out there by John Panette and the buffets and everybody else. And I'm like, I did a couple of jokes and they went over, and I'm like, I didn't feel that there was enough for me to dig in and get even 5 or 10 minutes worth of material out of it, because it's been like everybody be like, wait a minute. Even though it's new, it's just too much like everybody else's. So it wasn't. I stayed away from it.
So difficult. I feel like the trick to comedy, because you can come out and say, hey, just do some weird, bizarre thing. Like a lot of stuff in comedy clubs. Like I have got material that I know works in comedy clubs. I have material that I know works in the alternative rooms, and a lot of material doesn't work in the other world. And I feel like people, the stuff that most people can, a lot of alternative comedy is, I don't know, they know more about comedy, so that it's almost, a lot of the stuff is they get all the devices, they get all the tricks of the trade, and what's funny to them is some sort of twist on that device, or twist on this type of joke, or twist on the style. And where mainstream is like, well, you don't see a lot of comedy. We just want to hear stuff that we can identify with in our lives. And so, but it's like, well, then the trick is like, well, what does everybody think about? What is that thing where people go, as they're hearing it, they go, oh, aha, or yes, I've thought something similar to that, or oh, I just was dealing with that recently. It's like you have to come up with something that everybody thinks, but that nobody's thought of yet. You think of someone that no comedians talked about yet on stage. You know?
I watched you do something like that. I watched one of your videos today, and I think it was Fallon, and you were on you've been on Jimmy Fallon, correct?
Yeah.
I think it was on Jimmy Fallon, and I was watching it, and I was buying into it just like the whole audience. and you did the whole thing where you were like, oh shit, I forgot my joke. I lost my spot, and you just go through that, and then you just you unfolded that huge piece of paper, and I was just like, what is this guy doing? And then all of a sudden it went from a little piece of paper to this big, huge thing. And then once it just opened up like 2 or 3 seconds, then you were like, when you first mentioned, like, I'm going to grab my notes, I was like, oh my God, this guy's never getting on TV again. And then I'm like, I don't even see how they aired this. But then I was like, the joke goes on, and it was great. And that's, I don't think I've ever seen anybody else do something like that on the show or any of the shows.
It was funny because I did think, I was like, well, people are not going to think, people are going to realize it's a joke because they're going to be like, they wouldn't air this if he genuinely forgot his stuff.
Right.
But it's so funny that people were just, no one, I guess, people don't, I knew people that even knew the bit, and they said they watched it, and they were like, they thought I genuinely forgot my stuff, and,
now, obviously, the TV producers and everybody knew you were going to do that, right?
Fallon was
so
in on
scripted.
it. He was great because I kind of like looked at him and said, I go, hey, do you mind if I get out my notes? And he was, I'm so sorry. He played along. He was like, yeah, no, go ahead. It was pretty great that they let me do that. It was such a fun thing. It was because it's a weird thing to do, and it was so fun to do. And I was like, there's no way they're going to let me do this. There's no way people are going to believe. They're going to be like, well, they wouldn't really air it on TV if you really forgot. They just do a retake or something.
They'll do America's greatest Fallon blooper reel. That's where you'll be.
Exactly. And the audience was amazing because the audience totally bought it, and they started cheering. They were cheering on, and I was like, part of me almost felt a little bit bad. I was like, oh, I'm totally fucking with all you guys. But they were like, I was like, I'm so sorry I forgot. And they're like, yeah, no, it's fine. Although I will say I've done that bit at a couple places. I haven't done it too much after Fallon, but I did it at this college conference So, and anybody doesn't know what we're talking about, go watch the Fallon set. Go to
You got to go to Oodles of Pun, which is the next question.
P-U-N.
Yes.
And,
how in the
it's
hell?
on there.
Oodles of Pun, OODLES of Pun, PUN.com. But on that site, they also want to know what the hell you think of the name Oodles of Pun. Like, why not just do your name? But hell, Oodles of Pun. So how'd you come up with that?
Here's the idea behind Oodles of Pun. I would tell people, go to Nick Vatterott, look up Nick Vatterott, and nobody knew how to spell it. No one knows how to spell Vatterott. Vatterott. I tell it to people right in front of me that want to write it down. I go, Nick Vatterott. They're like, what, Nick Vatterbop? No, it's Nick Vatterott. All right, Nate Vatterott. No, you said Nate instead of Nick, like happened earlier. And then I had this brilliant idea. I was like, well, no one can ever remember Vatterott. Nobody can ever spell Vatterott. There's no way people are getting home from a comedy show and looking up Nick Vatterott and remembering how it's spelled or anything. So I was like, you know what? I got to come up with something easy for people to remember. So what I just tried to think of something easy to remember. So I came up with Oodles of Pun, and I thought a pun using the word pun would be easy to remember. This has not been the case. The whole point of Oodles of Pun was I was trying to come up with like a catchy, fun thing that's easy to remember because no one can spell that right. Doesn't matter. I'll tell people Oodles of they'll go, cool. Noodles of Fun. No, it's a pun using the word pun. Oh, okay, great. Googles of Pun. No, not Googles of Pun. Oodles of Pun. Great. All right, Noodles of Noodles. No, that's not. And nobody can remember it. So I just now have just two websites that nobody can ever remember.
There you go. You got a great picture on the front page of the Nick Vatterott one, though. Great picture. Other than that, just go to
yeah, I love that one. Mindy Tucker took that. I always had a funny idea for a picture I always wanted to do. That was just the idea of yelling into a microphone and the microphone's hooked up to headphones on your head is so funny to me. And so Mindy Tucker for this magazine took the picture. I was like, this is perfect.
What's up with the what I can only assume is some kind of a weirdo outfit that you're in? Like, it looks like is it yellow or black? You're standing there just from like a costume from head to toe.
Is it the taco? Is it Taco Jason?
If I knew that, I wouldn't be asking, man. No, it's an all. It's an all. You know what? No, it's the picture on your Facebook. And you're just in like a black tights, and just your face is showing.
I have a couple pictures of me with birds. And to me, I met a parrot, I met a cockatoo on the streets of Chicago in the dead of winter to this guy, where I got my picture taken, and then it tried to bite off my hat right as the picture. So that picture was amazing. Because I was just walking down Chicago. I mean, it's February, it's freezing, this guy just has a cockatoo on his shoulder. I was like, well, I can't not talk to this guy for a little bit to see what his craziness is like. And then this picture is Mashup on Comedy Central. We did, which I worked on 8 episodes with, and we did on my episode, Mashup, the premise is everybody does stand-up, but then they cut away from the stand-up, and you see people act out your bits. So I have this alphabet bit that I do, and I got to dress up as the letter Q in my bit. So on this day of shooting, I wear this giant black unitard, and then I wear this giant Q costume over that. And so I was out of my Q, but in the still in the black unitard. And they had a penguin for the end of the bit in the sketch, and so I just got to hang out with this penguin for a little bit, and that's what that picture is from.
Nice. But I also like the one on the front where you're yelling into your own headphones. That is a great shot. It looks.
Oh yeah. I that's how I feel all the time. Like I'm just screaming into my own head.
All right. So let's get in a little bit more about your comedy. How do you write? What kind of what's your method when you're writing new material?
I feel like one thing I feel that I don't do is I have a hard time putting pen down to paper. I think if something happens, what I like to do is just kind of like note it, and then kind of like walk around and talk it out to myself when no one else is around. To be perfectly honest, like I don't know. I mean, there's this thing. Like just last week, I know airplane jokes are totally overdone, but I was on an airplane joke. I was I was about to be on an airplane joke. I was in an airplane, and the flight attendants, it was just cracking me up that the people in the exit row, she's got to do this. She has to get a verbal confirmation from them, and I think it's always funny. Because like awkward things in life, I think stick out. And anytime anything super awkward happens, a lot of time that's something that you're like, oh, this is interesting. Would this be funny to talk about on stage? And there's something so awkward about the flight attendant trying to get the verbal confirmation from people in the exit row that just don't. It's like 6 a.m. They don't really want to talk to them. They're pretending that they aren't listening to her. They're pretending that they're not there. And she's like, I need to get a verbal confirmation. And they're like, yeah, I don't know, I'll do it. And they're like, no, I need yes or no. Okay, yeah. And like she's frustrated that no one's saying yes or no. They're frustrated they have to talk to somebody. And then I saw a guy say no, which cracked, so then once you start seeing something and you start laughing about something, then you're like, oh, this is something that'd be fun to talk about. Because the guy said no, and which is so funny to me, that she's like, in the event of emergency, are you willing and able to help your fellow passengers? And this totally able-bodied man was like, no, I'm not helping anybody. and she was like, well, if you don't say yes, then you have to sit bitch in this row in the back. And he was like, yeah, I'll do that. And this guy would rather sit bitch than have the window seat in the luxurious exit row. And that just totally cracked me up. So, like, that's something that I thought about. And so then, I kind of like jotted that down, how funny it was that this guy said no. And then, like, later on, I was just kind of walking. A lot of times I write when I walk around. I walk around in the shower. I take showers and I kind of talk to myself. When I'm walking somewhere, I'll start talking to myself and just kind of like start talking it out and seeing I feel like I have to say it out loud. And I feel like I got to some city and I was just walking somewhere to eat, and I started kind of telling myself that whole thing that I saw that morning and talking it out and pretending, like if I was on stage, how would this go? And what was funny to me about it. And as I'm talking and walking, I think I found like the idea of, I asked myself, why doesn't he just lie? If the guy really didn't want to sit there, why didn't he just lie? Because first of all, the plane's not going to crash. 2, if it does crash, you're probably not going to live through it. So
who's there to yell at him?
What's that?
Who's there to yell at him? But you said you would help.
Hey, you promised. You're just like, sorry, plane's on fire. I got to get out of here. And you're like, oh, but I gave you this. We had a deal.
Yes.
And so then I start acting up, and as I'm walking around, I must look like a crazy person. Sometimes if you see somebody talking to themselves and they're not on a Bluetooth, just assume they're a comedian acting out a bit.
There you go.
I think that's kind of what I do. I walk around, I start talking, and next thing you know, I'm on a street corner going, hey, let's come back here. And I was like, no, man, the plane's about to blow up. I got to go home. And I was like, who's he talking to, and why is he yelling, and what plane is he talking about?
I get that.
I think that's a little bit of my weird writing process.
I get funny looks at work a lot because I got one of these Fandango smartphone things, and they all got the voice. They got I have one of those Android ones, and they got all the voice recorders. So I'll get a good idea, and that nowhere I'll just be standing at work and I start talking all this, either these ideas and sometimes some filth into my phone, and people are like, "What the hell is Dave doing?" And everybody's like, "Oh, he does comedy part-time. He probably just had some killer idea and spoke it into his phone." He doesn't want to have to write it down. He just voice to text everything.
Do they ever ask you do they ever go, do you talk about us? Do you tell jokes about us?
In the beginning, when I first got into comedy, I did talk a little bit about my job, and I've totally moved away from it now because my job is like a Fortune 20 company, so they're super, super huge.
Oh, wow.
And I may be just a lowly green pea salesperson for them, but I want to continue to be that because comedy ain't paying me anywhere near the same amount of money.
The Fortune top 20.
Yes. So
No comedian's making Fortune 20 money.
well, listen, I'm not making Fortune 20 money. I'm on the lower end of a company that does. So
Yeah.
if I was making Fortune 20 money, I probably would not be interested in doing anything but that job. I'd be taking my whatever those 6 or 7 figures would be. I would work a couple of years and run away to some fucking country that nobody knows my name and live like a fat king of the world for the rest of my life with beautiful Mexican women bringing me grapes and BJ's.
Isn't that weird that that's the whole goal? Everyone's just like if you can do anything, everyone's just like, well, I get the fuck out of America. I go to some weird island and just be surrounded by people I don't know well.
Yeah, but you know what? I think Mexico is the perfect place because we're becoming very Mexican here anyway. I enjoy their food. I just don't have to eat the ice or drink the water, and it's kind of just like being here. And if I do it out by California, I could just drive up into California when I don't feel good.
You can fake enough of the language, you know. You gotta whatever they talk, you get a gist of what they're talking about.
Listen, I'm fat. Anything, they're all just gonna assume I'm asking for food. Oh, he's hungry. Just give him food. He'll go away. And I will. I don't care what my problem was. You give me one of them flank steaks cooked Mexican style or some crazy tasting burrito.
Fajita, baby.
It's all good, man.
It is the best. I spent a decent time in Mexico, and just like if you're going to ask for a michelada. It's the most amazing alcoholic drink I've ever had.
Yeah?
I love it so much.
What's it?
Oh my gosh! If you like blood, it's kind of like I don't know. If you like Bloody Marys, it's like a bloody beer, but it's done with it's I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. It's just awesome.
I'm not a big drinker. I can drink some beer here and there, but when I do, I enjoy the darkest beers going, like Guinness.
Ooh, Negro Modelo's a good one. A good dark Mexican beer.
And when I'm drinking alcohol, I switch over to I could just do shots or sip Jägermeister on the rocks, and it's just heavenly. If it's like dark and syrupy, and it's just good. I should have
puckers? You like apple puckers? That's super syrupy.
No, because it's too sweet. It's too sweet. I am not a sweet guy. I am a big fat bastard, but I am full of Chinese food and burgers. There's not too many chocolate bars and stuff like that in here. There's like only a big toe's worth. I am fat on real food. Something about those sweets just don't do it for me.
Oh man, yeah, you need some meat, man. You need some mayonnaise, some deep fried mayonnaise butter.
Deep fried mayonnaise butter. The only thing that I like deep fried, and for a fat guy, I own not 1 ounce of mayonnaise, butter, condiments. I don't keep any of that in the house. It's kind of weird. I'm one of those guys where I'll eat a whole bunch of shit, but if it doesn't taste good on its own, I don't want to eat it. Like when you go to the Chinese restaurant and they're like, "You want extra sauce?" I'm like, "Well, did you cook it right?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Well, then it probably tastes good. So no, I don't want no fucking different sauce."
I don't know. I like dipping, man. I don't know what it is. I go somewhere. I just want more of everything. I feel like if I like to have the option to dip it in something. I don't even care.
Yeah.
I'll be like, just give me some sort of dip, but it doesn't get dip. That's a hamburger. I don't know. I want to dip something. I want more stuff to do when I'm eating.
There's only one thing in life, to be a little perverted, maybe 2 things that I want to dip, and they're both warm and moist, and they don't involve feeding my hunger sensation.
I know what you're talking about.
Flan. Yes, flan. It's soft. It's mushy. I want to do my own American Pie version of flan. I want to be on a counter with my fat white ass making out with some flan. That would be heavenly. What better could you want than making out with flan? Maybe just some Jägermeister to sit down with it. And a senorita.
It feels just like an ice cold vagina.
Oh,
if you like
man.
having sex with dead people, flan is your next best thing.
Oh, man.
That's so gross, and someone's gonna try it.
Oh. And if you do try it, please call in to the Let's Be Frank show or send me an email or something. I don't know if I want to hear this.
No pictures, just tell
Yeah,
us.
I was going to say, I don't know if I want to hear the story or just see pictures or vice versa. I may need to see a picture just to believe it really happened. And I'll post it on the Let's Be Frank show page or Fat Davey page and Twitter. If you were man enough to fuck a flan, I will post
And
it.
if you do fuck a flan, don't serve the flan. And don't eat the flan. Just throw away the flan. The flan has had enough.
Yes.
Let the flan go. Throw it in the ocean.
It did its job. It is good. So we got about 6-7 minutes left in the show, Nick. Tell me some of your up-and-coming places where people can see you at. What's going on?
Holy crap, man! I'm gonna be in Go Bananas here on let's see, I know March 21st to 24th. You can see me at Go Bananas Comedy Club. I've never gone bananas before, but I'm looking forward to being bananaed.
There you go. Now, is that in? Where is that? Because I know you're going back. I know we were talking the other day. You're going back and forth right now. Is it between New York and L.A.?
Oh yeah. I'm in New York mostly New York. I do a lot of stuff at the Creek and Cave and Comedy Club in Long Island City, and L.A. I don't know. I'm just going out there. I'm trying to make some money, man. I'm trying to get a piece of that sweet flan that they have.
Absolutely.
Everybody's making money off of out there.
There you go. Isn't this
man.
Pilot Week? Shouldn't you be out there for Pilot Week trying to get famous?
Yeah, tell somebody if they're looking to cast a small, weird-looking bald guy that I am their man.
All right, but if it works, I got to get like 20% because I've been pitching a short, weird-looking fat man, and I haven't gotten any action on that at all. Nothing.
There should be a sequel to Jake and the Fat Man. It'd be called Short Guy and the Fat Guy.
Absolutely. Let's go. If anybody from corporate entertainment world wants to hire Dave Frank and Nick Vatternaut to be the new Jake and the Fat Man, I will gladly play Jake, and Nick will gladly put on about 250 pounds to get that role.
I do just want to. My goal is to have to fatten up for a role. I've always been jealous of that. When like Sylvester Stallone puts on 30 pounds, and he's just like, he's still super chiseled. What was that one movie where he put on weight? And just like you still could bench everybody you know.
Absolutely. That's because he puts it on with a cocktail. he puts it on with muscle weight.
He would take like performance enhanced. He'd be like fat enhancing drugs or something like FEDs.
Well, didn't he get caught coming from Mexico to California with some human growth hormone once? Like
like Australia or something like that.
Something.
But everybody knew, and we don't care. I don't know.
Just make me laugh or beat somebody up.
What's that?
As long as he can make me laugh or beat somebody up, I really don't care what you need to do to get there.
I don't care. I don't care.
I think they should give the One Nut Wonder all his trophies back. Screw it.
Oh, you think so?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He had the ball enough to do the drugs and to still ride. Let him give him his props. Screw it.
I mean, we actually paid attention for cycling. Nobody cares about cycling. He made it interesting for a while. Same thing with baseball. Baseball had that big strike, and then all of a sudden, if the home run, between Sammy Sosa and McGwire didn't take place after the strike,
Baseball would have been dead.
Baseball.
Absolutely.
Steroids saved baseball. I'm going to write a book.
There you go. It sounds good. Steroids saves baseball.
The Nick Vatternaut story.
And
I was like, I don't know much about what I'm talking about, but this is going to be 300 pages.
There you go. If you could come up with 300 pages of absolutely nothing, that's awesome. I just had to. I had to do my first writing assignment. I'm reading a book, and I'm trying to do a little bit of maneuvering, maybe from comedy to a little bit more public speaking, because there's a little bit more money available there.
Ooh.
And so I had to do my first writing assignment, and it's funny. I'm 40 years old, and you don't think about in today's day and age how often you don't write. In the assignment, and it was a book by Judy Carter. It's called The Message of You, and the first assignment that I got was I had 20 minutes to answer 9 questions, and you had to write for 20 minutes straight. And it wasn't that I ran out of stuff to write about, but my forearm hurt so fucking bad from writing for 20 minutes. Like, because I type everything or I use the speech to text. Yeah. So it's crazy. So I was like, holy cow, this is the hardest part.
Have you tried to draw? I tried to draw recently for the first time since I was probably maybe I think since a kid. I think I got pubes. I stopped drawing, and then 20 years later, I tried to draw because I thought of a funny cartoon, and I was like, I'll draw it. And I sat down to draw it, and I looked like a little kid trying to draw. I picture what I want it to look like, and my hand just makes a weird circle, and I'm like, I'm drawing stickmen, people. I go, this is really? I don't know what I thought. I don't know if I thought like in 20 years, oh, I'll just be a better drawer because I'll be older. And it's like I draw like a little kid, and it's really sad.
Just like I still write. But listen, I mean, because it's still illegible, but illegible. That's a horrible word. I can't even get it out. But we got about 1 minute. We got about 1 minute left.
My rap name, Little
Illegible. Ellie. Hey, we got about 1 minute left in the show. So real quick, let people know where they can find you on Twitter and Facebook, and give them the name to your freaky website again.
Oodlesofpun.com. Don't worry, you've already forgotten it. Nick Vatterott, NickVatterott.com. I'm on Twitter. I got a Facebook thing. I have me and TJ Miller had a web series called RVC. It's a home shopping network, kind of basically satire. 6 episodes. There's an interactive. It's an interactive website, so you can put in your phone numbers, and we never. I didn't issue the phone numbers and go anywhere, but just the website, and you get like texts and phone calls from the characters in the show while the episode's happening. It's super fun. We got a lot of fun guest stars on there. That's on Redes, REDES.TV. It's called RVC. And yeah, man, I might be just lurking around in general. So always look behind your shoulder because I might be standing there.
All right. Thank you very much, Nick. We got to cut to the end of the show.
I hope everybody looked behind them just now as I said that. Wouldn't that be weird? Because for some person, I'm going to be behind them when they hear that.
Absolutely. Nick, thank you very much for spending some time with us. You have a great night. This show's going to be airing soon, and we look forward to hearing back from you and seeing what's going on in the future.
Thank you so much. It was super fun.
All right. Thank you, and have a great night.
All right. Take care, Frank.
Bye-bye. We've come to the end of another edition of the Let's Be Frank Show. To catch up on past shows, find us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and Podomatic at Let's Be Frank's Podcasts. Want to be part of the show? Email Dave at letsbefrankwithdavefrank@yahoo.com. Stay funny, my friends. See you next week.